Hello friends, welcome to this YouTube video program. We are discussing about different methods that we use for conducting educational research. As per the nature of educational research is concerned, we use four types of method. We use philosophical method, we use historical method, we use experimental method, and we also use survey types of method, survey types of research. In our earlier program, we have discussed the philosophical method and we have also discussed historical method. Today in this program we will discuss about the use of experimental method for conducting educational research. We will be discussing experimental method in two different sessions. Today in the first session we will discuss about the concept and characteristics of conducting experimental research, and in our next session we will discuss about different experimental design that we use for conducting research by using the experimental method. So friends, let us now focus on the concept and characteristics of experimental research. You see, the major concern of an experimental research is to deal the data, okay, the quantitative data. So that's why, because by conducting experimental research you will get the data. You see, in survey research I have already told you that there is the possibility of getting two types of data. You will get the quantitative data as well as you will get the quantitative data, both qualitative and quantitative. And by conducting a philosophical study, mostly you will get the qualitative data, and conducting historical research, you will find that this scope of getting qualitative data is more in comparison to getting quantitative data. So when we talk about the experimental research, you see, our entire research is based upon the positivist paradigm approach of conducting research that we do usually in the physical sciences. Okay, when we conduct a type of experiment in different disciplines of physical science, maybe in physics, chemistry and other areas of science based subjects, so you will find that mostly we conduct this study in a laboratory. Okay, we do the experiment in the laboratory. But equally, in education, in psychology, in anthropology and other areas of social science discipline, social science subject, we also do a type of experimental study. Okay, though these studies are not highly laboratory based, but still then you can say the concept, the methods, the steps and the sense of conducting an experiment is equally used in educational research also. So as I have already told you, by conducting an experimental research, here the scope is to get the quantitative data. So when you are getting the quantitative data, then for analyzing that quantitative data you will be using rigorous statistical applications. Okay, maybe a parametric test, maybe t-test, maybe ANOVA. So such type of test you will be using. And again, I have already told you in classifying educational research methods for conducting educational research, that there is a future implications of conducting experimental research, because the findings that you are getting today, that findings are having a type of future implications that can be used in future. Okay, so just like for conducting a survey research, our intention and our aim is to know the present status of the problem. But by conducting an experimental research, we know the present status, but at the same time the result can be used in future also. So friends, after discussing the major concerns of experimental research, let us now focus upon certain the popular terms that are used in conducting experimental research. Means these words and terms, these concepts frequently as a researcher you will be using in your research. These terms are like experimenter, subject, independent variable, dependent variable, control group, experimental group, pre-test, post-test, etc. So let us try to understand. So who is an experimenter? Here the researcher is an experimenter, because the researcher has to conduct this study, conduct this experiment. So the researcher is the experimenter here. And subject, who are the subject? Subject means here, if you are conducting the study upon the students, okay, let 8th standard students, 9th standard students, so here students will be the subject, okay, the sample. So you have to make groups, you have to make two groups, one will be the control group and other will be the experimental group. So for forming the groups, you will be requiring the subjects, you will be requiring the students, if you are conducting it on school students. So the students are here the subject. Then again, let us try to understand the independent variable and the dependent variable, okay. So you see, in experimental research, so far as discipline of education is concerned, so many a time we do it to know the implications, to know or the effect, the impact, the effectiveness of a new method, okay. Let we talk about programmed instruction method, okay, programmed instruction method, whether program instruction method is an effective method or not for conducting this study. What you have to do, we have to form two groups, one will be the control group and other will be the experimental group. And here we have to take two methods, one is the program instruction method and other is the traditional method that we usually use in our teaching learning process. So what you will do, already you have made two groups, one is the control group and other is the experimental group. So you have to teach control group by using a traditional method, and you have to teach the experimental group by using the experimental method, means here the programmed instruction method. And after implementing both the methods, after conducting the experiment, after completion of the teaching learning process, your entire curriculum, okay, as per your design, then what you will be doing, you have to comparing the result of the control group and the experimental group, okay. So if you will get that if the experimental group result is better than the control group, then you can say there is certain positive effect, positive impact, okay, of programmed instruction method on the achievement of the students. So you can say, so that's why here programmed instruction method is the independent variable, and the achievement of the students, means after conducting the experiment, you can say that is the dependent variable, because the achievement depends upon the method. So maybe programmed instruction method, maybe a traditional method. So all the methods that we use in the teaching learning process are the independent variable, okay. Then after implementing the method, after conducting the experiment, the results that we are getting in terms of performance of the students, in terms of achievement of the students, that we can say that is the dependent variable. Next, let us try to understand another two concepts, control group and experimental group. Already I have touched upon this concept that you have to make two groups, one will be the control group and other will be the experimental group. And while forming two groups, further we will discuss that how to form a control group and how to form an experimental group. But here two group of subjects will be there, two group of students will be there, upon whom you have to experiment, okay, by using any method, okay, a new method on the experimental group and a traditional and old method, a method that we usually use in the teaching learning process upon the control group. So here two groups we have to form, one will be the control group and other will be the experimental group. So experimental group will be that group to whom we will experiment the new method, and control group will that group upon whom we have to implement the traditional approach or traditional method. Then again, two other concepts that we face in the experimental research, that is the pre-test and post-test. So here try to understand what is pre-test and post-test. You see, before conducting any experiment, to know the background knowledge of the students, or for forming the groups, control group or the experimental group, because we have to make two equivalent group, okay, two parallel group, two equal group. So making two equal group, what we will be doing, we have to do a type of pre-test. Okay, this may be a type of achievement test, basing upon their standard, basing upon their classes, basing upon the curriculum that they are studying. Okay, we have to know their achievement level. Okay, so basing upon their achievement level, we have to make two groups. So before conducting experiment, the test that we are taking for making the groups, that is called as the pretest. By conducting the pretest, we know their achievement, their you can say their knowledge base. So that is the pretest. And after pretest, we do the experiment, we implement the new method, we provide the treatment to both the groups. Okay, one group by using the traditional method and other group by using the new method. Then after the detailed experimentation is after completion of the detailed experimentation, then what we will do to know the achievement of the students, so we will conduct the post test. Okay, so basing upon what treatment we have given, what curriculum we have conducted, we have to prepare a test. So here we are taking two tests. One is the pre-test and other is the post-test. The nature of test will be different. Okay, post-test will depend upon what treatment we have given to the subjects, and pre-test will depend upon from which standard they belong and what curriculum they have studied up to that standard. So these are the two concepts, and we have to compare the result of pre-test and the post-test. Okay. So these are the certain concepts, certain terminology that we use for conducting experimental research. Next, friends, let us try to discuss about certain characteristics of experimental research. You see, major 4 characteristics that we face for conducting the experimental research, or when we explain the concept of experimental research. One is the control, and the second is the manipulation, third is observation, and fourth is replication. Try to understand, try to remember. I repeat, one is the control, then manipulation, then observation, then replication. Try to understand the concept of control, manipulation, observation, and replication, and how these concepts are used for conducting experimental research. So let us first focus upon the control. You see, in experimental research, we study the effect of an independent variable on a dependent variable. As I have already told you, what you will be doing, independent variable is the you can say the new method, like your programmed instruction, and dependent variable will be the achievement of the students. Means when we are giving a treatment, when we are giving a new treatment to the subjects, to the students, when you are teaching by using a programmed instruction method, or you can say online learning method by using the MOOCs, massive open online courses. Okay, so if you want to know the effectiveness of MOOCs for teaching a particular curriculum in a particular standard, so what you will do, so your independent variable is the method. Here at MOOCs will be the independent variable, and the dependent variable, after implementing this method, the result that you will get, okay, the achievement that you will get from the students, so that will be the dependent variable. Okay, so achievement depends upon the method. So next, let us try to understand. So there are many factors you see responsible to study the effect of an independent variable on a dependent variable. Many factors are responsible. So you see, when we are talking about study the effect of intelligence on academic achievement. What is the effect of intelligence on academic achievement? So you see, for academic achievement, many factors work. Okay, intelligence is, you can say, this is only one factor. Apart from intelligence, study habit is also another factor, curriculum is another factor, practice of the students is another factor, learning environment is also another factor, then attitude of the learners is also another factor. But in experimental, by conducting the experimental study, what we want to know the effectiveness of a particular independent variable upon the dependent variable by controlling the other factors. Okay, when we are talking about to study the effect of programmed instruction in teaching algebra. So when we are teaching algebra, so what is the effect of program instruction? So what you will be doing, you have to make two groups. One will be the control group and other will be the experimental group. To one group you will teach by using the program instruction method, and to other group you will be using the traditional method. So when you are making two groups, one will be the control and other will be the experimental group. So what preconditions you will take, what precautions you will take for forming the group, what control you will make for forming the group. Okay, so unless you make two equivalent group, you cannot get the real effect of an independent variable upon the dependent variable. So that's why control of forming the group is, or because many factors are there, that is the most important work. If your control is not if as a researcher you have not implement, or you have not bring proper control, or if you have not eliminated the extraneous and intrinsic variable which affect your study, especially in an experimental research, then you will not get good result. So let us try to understand that how you will what methods you will adopt for bringing control in your study, in experimental study. So when you are selecting the control group or the experimental group by doing a proper randomization, by selecting the group by using the random sampling technique, you can also bring certain control. Then second, you can say matching subjects with random assignments. So many a time when you are forming two groups, what you will do for making two equivalent groups, it is very difficult. So even if after making randomization, you will find that randomly you are getting a better group in comparison to other group. Okay, so abilities of two groups are also not equal. Then what you will do, you have to compare, you have to make a pairs, and taking a equal pair, you have to select one subject to control group and other subject to experimental group. So that's why you have to take after randomization, you have to take two subjects and you have to see whether two subjects are equal or not, equivalent or not, so far as their abilities are concerned, so far as their attributes are concerned, okay, personality and other aspects are concerned. So by making proper randomization, you can make two equal groups. So that control you can do in your study for conducting experimental research. Then next is the next characteristics is manipulation. So you see who can do the manipulation work. So here you see the researcher should have ample control upon himself, upon herself, when the researcher is doing the research, because here the researcher can do a type of manipulation, and you see your research should free of any type of manipulation. As example, we have discussed about the programmed instruction method. So when you are implementing program instructional method to an experimental group, and we are teaching to a control group by using a traditional method. So you see, you have to take certain lesson from the curriculum, from a particular, you are teaching algebra from a particular standard. So what you will do, the same teacher will teach the control group, and the same teacher will teach to the experimental group. So many a time you will find that the teacher who is teaching to control group by using a traditional method, if the teacher is very effective and the teacher is rigorously teaching to the students and touching each and every aspects and making his or her teaching very interesting, so you will find that many a time the traditional the group of students or the control group to whom traditional treatment has been given, they are doing better in comparison to experimental group, because in experimental group the teacher who is teaching, it may be proper planning has not been done, or proper teaching, the rigorous teaching or quality teaching has not done. So that's why certain manipulation you can do so far as the independent variable is concerned, but you cannot do any manipulation upon age, you cannot do any manipulation upon gender, but you can do the manipulation upon the independent variable, upon one independent variable, or many a time you can also manipulate upon multiple independent variables. So it is up to the researcher to understand that there shouldn't be any manipulation, and if you do the manipulation, then you will not get the exact the effect. You cannot study the exact effect. Then next is the observation. You see, it is another characteristics. Observation means your test. So after implementing the new method, after conducting the experiment, your next work is to prepare a test. Okay. Prepare a test means that is the post test. I have already discussed about the pre-test and post test. So when you will prepare the test, the questions that will cover in the test from the curriculum that you have implemented, means the treatment that you have given. Okay, so maybe to control group or maybe to the experimental group. So here the questions that you will select, nature of questions, and the content coverage will be from the particular treatment. So that's why the observation means here this course. Observation means here is the test course. So be particular as a researcher. You should be very particular about the observation, about the questions, about the forms of the questions, about the test, because what you will be doing, you have to comparing the result. Okay, so that's why the test that you are preparing, the observations that you are getting, that should be solid one, that should be proper one, and that should be taken the treatment or the curriculum or the new method that you have implemented upon the group. Then the fourth one is the replication. You see, replication can be done to know the standard of exact effect of an independent variable on the dependent variable, exact effect. So many a time you will see, you see by default, by chance, you are getting that there is an effect of a new method upon the control group, upon the group of subject. That means the group to whom you have given the new method treatment, they are doing better in comparison to the traditional method treatment, but you cannot come to a conclusion. So that's why many a time what can be done to know the exact and the proper impact or effect of the new method or new treatment, you can do certain replication. You can form more than one groups. Okay, multiple control and multiple experimental groups can be formed. Let instead of forming only one control group and one experimental group, as a researcher, if you are forming, let 3 control groups and 3 experimental groups, and everything will be same. The curriculum will same, treatment will same, number of lessons will be same. Okay, classroom environment will be same. So everything will be same. Only what you are doing parallel experiment. Okay, you have taken 3 parallel system or 4 parallel system, means 4 control group you have formed and 4 experimental groups you have formed. So what you will do, when the same method will be implemented upon 4 different experiments, then when you will compare the results, if you are getting a similar types of result of first experimental group, then second experimental group, then third and fourth experimental group, then you can say that that is the exact effect of your independent variable upon the dependent variable. So many a time you can also do a type of replication. You have to do more than one group also. Okay, let 2 control groups, 2 experimental groups, 3 control groups and 3 experimental groups, and you have to implement your experimentation, you have to implement the new method, and you have to implement your study. So friends, today we have discussed about the concept of experimental method, and we have also discussed the characteristics. Then in our next program we will discuss about different design that we use for conducting experimental research. Thank you.